Now, when you get to your camera and equipment, it can be confusing, but I'm going to help you demystify it. I'm going to do a whole separate decoder action. And one thing you should do is have the idea of seeing what your camera sees. Bob Holmes told us that. You can't see what your eye sees because your eye is like hugely dynamic range. It's got a huge dynamic range, but your camera doesn't. So you have to look at what is your camera seeing? So you go out and you photograph, take careful note of how it looks to you through the camera and through your eyes. You then go back on your computer, open it up. If you're shooting film, you'd have to go through a whole print process, so it's easier to do it on a computer and compare. How many times have you captured, say, a beautiful sunset, and you looked at it and it blew you away, and then you looked at it in the camera and it was like nothing. It completely missed the point. So you got to do this comparison. Then you go back and you repeat this as often as you need to in order to determine what that camera and that lens, how it sees the world. Every camera is going to look a little different at the world. Every lens is going to be a little different. So whatever setup you've got, this is the process you're going to follow. Very important. Because once you know that, you should be intuitive about you using your camera. And you just repeat that as often as you need to under different conditions. Capture. Now that means a blending of your vision with using your camera. Don't get hung up on the rules of composition because there are no rules. Train your eye, as I've already told you. You got to train it to see images and see compositional tools. There are guides that can help you compose, not rules. The rule of thirds is not a rule, it's a guide. And you can choose those or not, depending on what your vision is. And you want to be flexible. You don't want to be stuck in a certain mode because that's going to clog up your creativity. You want to be flexible enough to be able to change and go, wow, there's a cool compositional tool that I never thought of using. I'm going to use it right now. Diagonal lines, for instance, leading lines that lead your eye to the subject. You should be able to spot those and use them. And then what do we get to the next stage, which is a separate part here. I didn't want to go over this. So lighting can be very confusing. You have to learn to observe it. And that means the ability to notice things, especially significant or worthy of details. You got to look at light and see it. You walk into a room, you want to see where's the light source. You know, if you have a fluorescent light up ahead, overhead, maybe you want to turn it off because it's going to put green and other weird colors into your image that you may not like. So you look for those things. One way to do that is to look at classical painters. This is our friend Vermeer, the girl with the pearl earring. He used one light source coming through a window, north-facing window, and that's it. So you can use these techniques. Rembrandt is another one. This is our friend Fletch Murray did a basically reenactment of Rembrandt as a photograph, as you can see. The more of these tools you have at your disposal, the more you can capture the kind of image that you really want. I tend to favor natural light, but I can tell you some of the basic points of artificial lighting that you can use to really get off the ground. And I can definitely direct you on that. Processing. You want to have a really good processing rhythm. You want to know when you go into your processing software, like what are the important steps to follow, what sliders. There's a million sliders in each software that you choose. Do you need to know all those? One of our past guests, Rickard Rudin, said that, listen, with Photoshop, he's a Photoshop expert, but he only uses like 10 or 15% of it. But he really knows those tools. He knows all the other ones, but he's only on a daily basis ever using about 10 or 15%. And it's the same thing with every software platform. You can easily get thrown off and confused by the number of choices and sliders. But in actual fact, you need to know a handful really well. And I'll be giving you a kind of a guided tour of those. And then finally, sharing your work. You came to the final stage. This is what's really satisfying, you guys, is getting your work out to the world, sharing your work with others. What are the options that you've got? In today's world, you've got a lot of options, but don't get stuck on social media as the only way to share your work. There's so many other ways that you should be aware of. Putting your prints on the wall is my favorite. Getting exhibits, printing books, cards, calendars. There's all sorts of ways to get your work out to the world, and we'll cover those. And we're going to cycle through these as we go through the different stages of photography, which is the decoder ring, because I'm not going to cover it all in one 10 or 15 minute video. I'm going to have to cover it over weeks and weeks. So stick around with me and you'll learn how to decode photography. How does that sound to you guys? I want to know, because knowledge will set you free. Knowledge will set you free. And I want to know what knowledge you need. So that's what we're going to be covering in this series. You guys should definitely, in between, you should definitely be following me, because I'm not just talking about it here in this YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing the same thing on all my other channels, talking about these subjects and reinforcing what I've already gone over with you. So make sure you do subscribe on my YouTube channel. You should also follow me on Instagram, because if you haven't noticed, we've really ramped up the content. We're getting it out there. You guys should be subscribed to my newsletter, because that's where we make these announcements. And Jared just put a link there, how to get there. And then you should also be part of the Facebook AYP Club group, where continuing discussions can occur here. Please subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our new shows. Like the video and please share it and leave your comments. I love hearing from you. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life.